really wanted to play through The Division again a few months ago. Being a video game pistol enjoyer, I decided to make this a pistol-only challenge run. For those that don't know, The Division is a 2016 team-based cover shooter developed by Massive Entertainment and published by Ubisoft. The main goals of this game are to hide behind things, shoot, and upgrade your gear and weapons to progress through the ever-thickening bullet sponge enemies with your friends in teams of up to 4. Normally, this would be done with a high-powered weapon, but instead, I chose to do it with the lowest-powered weapon, the pistol. These are relegated to the sidearm slot and do a fraction of the damage that something like an assault rifle or marksman rifle would do. To put this into perspective, at the end of my run, I had a level 29 pistol that did a base damage of 6,000 damage per shot, and level 26 marksman rifle that did 13,000 damage per shot. While the marksman rifle would definitely be slower per shot, you're still doing more damage per hit and have much more stopping power. You also don't have the high RPM of an automatic assault rifle or a submachine gun. On to the rules, I guess. The main one being I can only use pistols as my main firearm. That means no shotguns, no marksman rifles, no assault rifles, or any other firearm type, even if it's shown in the sidearm menu. Second rule would be that we need to finish the final main mission of the base game, General Assembly. The third being I must do this solo, which means no friends to help me out when things get tough. A final rule is that I can use any other weapons or abilities that the game offers. This includes grenades, shields, and health-related weapons. Now that we have that outlined, we can go through this challenge. Before starting, I would like to apologize for the video quality. All of these clips are taken from my YouTube stream, and they were all streamed at 720 due to an outdated stream key that was still hooked into OBS. Don't forget to drop a like. I start off by creating my character and entering the far-off fantasy world of New York City. Brooklyn, to be exact. This is the tutorial island, and before progressing any further into the game, I decided to finish the side missions and take my first death of the run. Before moving on to the main map of the game, I went through the Precinct Siege mission and defeated the first boss of the game, Ripper. After finishing the tutorial, we get flown over to Manhattan, where the real game begins. Once making it to Manhattan, I did the side missions and encounters that were around the Chelsea and Hudson Yards sections of the map. This added deaths 2 through 4 to the counter, which will be shown here in a bit. While going through these areas, I didn't gain much in the way of gear, so I was fighting higher level enemies with a lower level gear from the tutorial area. Auto parkour was also on during the early areas, which caused a lot of goofy movement and mistakes on my part. Doing side missions in this game doesn't just grant you access to new weapons and armor, it's also an easier way to level your character and to get the points needed to upgrade your home base once you unlock the ability to do so. Any points achieved before unlocking this gets banked, so you don't have to worry about doing things too early. On my way to finishing up the Chelsea side missions, I unlocked the Tenderloin safe house to gain a new fast travel location, in addition to getting the missions for that area. After leaving there, I continued to finish up the side missions before I make my way through to Pennsylvania Plaza, where we can take on the first main mission of the game outside of the tutorial. This mission is called Establish Base of Operations. The title of the mission is exactly what we're doing. We're fighting off the delinquents who tried to overtake the base. We run in, guns blazing, into a massive firefight between our team, the JTF, and one of the bad guy teams. Take out the boss, Hool, very quickly, and continue the assault on the remaining enemies in the area. Once done with this mission, we now establish the base of operations, where we can go to upgrade the base, reload on ammo, and purchase new weapons and armor. We buy some armor upgrades and swiftly leave to the next main mission of the game, Madison Field Hospital. We make our way through this mission and end up on the roof where we face off against Hutch. We completed this mission for the first time without adding any additional deaths to the counter. After finishing the mission, we continued to do side missions in the area in an attempt to level up and gain better gear. Then on to the next mission, Lincoln Tunnel Checkpoint. This was the first tough mission due to the inclusion of these sniper enemies. At the end of the mission, we fight an unnamed elite enemy before being brought back out into the open to fight the sniper boss of the mission, Finch. This one is especially hard with a pistol because you have to keep your distance and be hidden since the sniper does so much damage to you. With the pistol being an unscoped weapon, we don't have much that we can see of such a faraway enemy. A lot of it is blindly firing at a tiny speck once I figured out the enemy's shot pattern. So we finished this mission only adding 2 deaths to the counter and no usable gear drops from any of the enemies. After this mission, we move on to the next area of the game, the Garment District. Here we complete all of the side missions and upgrade our gear before moving on to the main mission in the area. This mission is Broadway Emporium, and it's the first mission where we encounter another gang faction, the Manhattan Maids. To do their job properly, they burn down everything that they see, including me. The boss of this mission is Kaczynski. He's a large brute that does a whole bunch of damage with his flamethrower. This boss fight was really just me running from cover to cover, trying to get far enough away from him that his flamethrower couldn't do damage, and so that I could get some shots off before he gets into range. The mission only added a single death to the counter. We then move on to the Subway Morgue mission. This one has the same type of boss as the previous mission, with an even smaller area to hide in. The boss is Benchley, and he goes down pretty easily. This mission added 0 deaths to the counter, and another mission where I didn't get any usable equipment. After regrouping at Mother Base, we are able to upgrade our equipment once more through the vendors. After doing some side missions, we then make our way over to the Hudson Refugee Camp mission. This is another mission that involves the cleaners. The boss of this mission is named Martinez, and he is what I would call the engineer type enemy. They drop down little turrets that can be very annoying. We take out Martinez and end the mission with 0 deaths added to the counter, and once again, no new gear drops. Moving on to the next mission, Napalm Production Site, we run into a few problems early into the mission. There's a section with a long corridor-like area that has multiple enemies, including an elite sniper in a far back area. This was hard not just because the enemies would group up and rush in, but because pretty much anywhere I could go, I would be in the vision of the sniper. On top of this, we had another engineer enemy and grenade enemies that would block my path. We end the mission by fighting another brute enemy named Joe through multiple hallways. It's a very simple fight of just run and wait. The boss itself didn't add any deaths to the counter, but the mission added 3. Again, no new equipment was gained from this mission. After this, I replayed the Madison Square mission in the hopes of gaining some additional level XP and equipment, but of course, that didn't work in my favor. I then move on to the Times Square Power Relay mission, which is where we are first introduced to the Rikers, another one of the enemy factions in the game. These guys mostly resemble sexy leather daddies on the outside, but are the same fundamental enemies as the original Rioter enemies from earlier. This was another fairly simple mission with a terrible boss fight at the end. We have to fight off the main boss, Slingshoot, who is a sniper, as well as a medium-tier sniper at the same time. With not many places to hide in the area, it was a slog of a fight, being only able to take shots every once in a while based off of the enemy's patterns. We only added 1 death to the counter from this mission, and it wasn't from the boss. Luckily, we ended up with a properly leveled pistol after completing the mission thanks to the boss drop. We then went back to the base to upgrade everything else and to try the Madison Square mission again, but on hard difficulty this time. This was a huge mistake as I couldn't even clear the first room and it added another death to the counter. I then went over to the Dark Zone to see if I could manage to grab some loot out there, but ended up getting killed quite a few times while in there. Each enemy that initially spawned was a named elite enemy, so I ended up giving up on trying to do anything in there. Fortunately, the Dark Zone is unnecessary for normal play, so it wasn't an issue. We then moved on to the Amherst apartment mission. This was one of my favorite missions when I originally played through the game because it gave the sniper a whole lot of use, and I found that to be the most enjoyable at the time. With a pistol though, I would say this is probably one of the hardest missions because of how unfair it is early on in the mission. The first attempt went horrible, and I wasn't able to make it through the beginning of the mission, so I decided to go out and grind some side missions to level and maybe get some new gear. While trying to grind for levels and gear, I also decided to attempt the Madison Square mission on hard once more, but I failed just like the first attempt, so I moved on to replay Broadway Emporium again on the normal difficulty. We were able to take out Kaczynski rather quick this time. I got a pistol drop this time, but it was worse than what I was already using, so I went back to grinding out side missions. After this, I went back to Amherst's apartment, where I was able to get past the first wave of enemies, but died to the elite brute in the second section. On the next go-through, I was able to lure the elite enemy out of the section he was in, and it allowed me to take him down. The final part of this mission is a barrage of enemies that are a fair distance from myself, with the boss being a sniper named Rogan. It wasn't a very tough fight, as they had the same pattern as the other sniper enemies, but them plus all the other enemies you had to take out over time is what made the finale of this mission challenging. This mission, despite how daunting the mid-boss was, only caused an additional 2 deaths to be added to the counter. After finishing this mission, I spent quite a few streams just clearing up side missions and grinding out some levels to better prepare myself for the higher leveled areas and missions we needed to go to next. During this time, we took a death to Hutch from the Madison Square mission, something I've never done before. I guess I got too cocky with some of my upgraded equipment. While doing these side missions, we were able to softlock one of the brute-type enemies, this one being a Riker and having a minigun during a fight with him. It was an easy takedown and made me feel good about myself. Another death was added by a roving elite named Belzer. His AI caused him to just keep running towards me instead of taking cover, and I was unable to make it away from him safely. We once again softlocked a brute enemy during another side mission. This one was even more enjoyable than the last one. In a different side mission, a brute does take me out, but we end up getting back at him on the second round of the side mission. This brought us up to level 20. I then continued with the side mission and took another death during that time from enemies that spawned outside of the side mission coming in to attack. When we finished all of the side missions available at this time, we moved on to the Police Academy mission. Very simple mission where the boss Scarecrow can be taken out in a pretty easy way due to the cover and height provided. This mission added 0 deaths to the counter and no new usable equipment. After this, we move on to a new safe house in Stuyvesant and start doing the side missions there. On one of the first ones, I take a death from some enemies I am clearly not yet equipped to handle. Wait, JK. I took him out on the next try. This would only really be possible thanks to one of my viewers, Dead Chrome, who is very knowledgeable about this game and suggested I should try out a shield build. I ended up using this shield build for the remainder of the game. So we continue through the area and clear out the side missions. During this time I ran into one of the boss spawns, an enemy named Chains, and got destroyed by him. I never did go back and attempt to redo this fight. While doing another side mission in the area, another 2 deaths were added to the counter before being able to finish it. Once the side missions in the area were cleared, we moved on to the Warren Gate power plant mission. This was another easy mission where we took out the boss Keller on the first attempt, adding 0 deaths to the counter and no new upgrades to our equipment. Of course, after this we went back to grinding out side missions for levels and gear. We take another 4 deaths trying to do a single side mission before finally moving to something else until I have the proper gear. The death counter has an additional death added to it during this time as well, so the counter will be off by 1 for the remainder of the video. We take another death from a different side mission, but end up finishing that one the second time around. From this point on, we start to take a lot of deaths because most of our gear is heavily underleveled for the areas and side missions we are trying to do. So we move on to the next mission, Lexington Event Center. We take out the mid-boss from this mission, another brute character, but in a much smaller area compared to the rest. This was a pretty hard fight, and I almost took a death on it, but I managed to take him out first. Then, we move towards probably one of the hardest boss fights in the game. It includes 2 machine gun brutes and 1 elite enemy, Luray. Funny enough, while I was looking for the name of this boss, I came across a comment that said this mission was impossible with an assault rifle, doing 19,000 damage on headshot. Another perspective moment here, my pistol this time did around 5,000 damage on a critical headshot. It was just absolutely brutal. Once the brutes were down though, it was a much simpler boss fight. The boss continued to just run around in circles while I took quick shots at her when I had a chance. It went from the hardest fight to probably one of the easiest in the game after that. The fight added 7 deaths to the counter, and of course being another mission that didn't have any upgrades for me. I went back and played the mission on my main account, and we can see how this fight could have gone if I was able to use any other weapons. Since this character is level 30, and has already completed this mission, everything in the mission has been scaled to level 30. This contrasts with me being level 25 and the enemies being level 20 in the challenge. After this, I figured I'd try to finish off another mission, this one being the rooftop comm relay mission. It's in the same section of the map as the previous mission, just a different area within that section. It was a pretty easy mission compared to the last, only getting one death during it from the mid-boss who just kept running towards me for some stupid reason. The boss of the mission was Glass, and it was honestly pretty easy considering the distance the game gave me. The finale of this mission consists of multiple elite and mid-tier enemies, as well as the boss coming at you from multiple different locations. This mission only added one death to the counter, and much like everything else so far, no new equipment upgrades. Once again, setting out to unlock a new safe house and do some side missions. I take another unwarranted death due to my own lust for destruction. After this though, we make our way over to the Queen's Tunnel Camp mission, another fairly easy mission where you take out the boss Sergeant King and his little drone weapons, adding 0 deaths to the counter and once again, no upgrades. After this, we moved on to the Grand Central Station mission, which I would probably consider the second hardest mission of the game with just a pistol. It has many close encounter rooms and quick enemies, as well as introducing the medic type enemy, which can heal other enemies over time. There was one room that caused me a lot of trouble due to the quick succession of enemies spawning in such a small area. Then the final area caused some issues as well since the enemies continued to rush and throw grenades at me. The boss, Captain Foley, was then taken out and we completed the mission. This mission added an additional 7 deaths to the counter, and now we're off by 2 deaths on the counter, and of course, another mission with no upgrades. After this, we continued on with the main missions and went directly to the Russian consulate mission after re-gearing back at the home base. After this re-gear, the mission was another easy one, only getting a single death from the mid-boss. The finale of this mission was pretty easy since I was able to run and hide at the end of a long chunk of flats and stairs. The boss, Hornet, was easily disposed of and we were able to move on. This mission added a single death to the counter and no new gear. I was seriously getting tired of how little gear I was able to utilize throughout this playthrough, and almost nothing was built with a pistol build in mind. I don't think the devs expected anyone to have taken on this challenge. After this, we unlocked the final mission of the base game, General Assembly. But before doing this final mission, I decided to clear up any side quests I could do so that I could hit the max level of 30 and get 300% base completion. Doing this allowed us to pretty much break the shield build we were using, effectively making the shield itself more durable as well as regenerating health when not taking damage for a period of time. This seriously broke this build. Almost no more hiding behind things, I could just walk around with my shield and pistol and not worry about anything. After doing this, we can finally go to the final mission and complete this challenge. This mission has a named mid-boss called Raptor. Once again, a pretty easy mission so far, and then we get to the next room, which is like a mid-boss. It's a large room that houses some enemies, but the hard part is that it has a crow's nest area that a sniper and medic hang out in. As mentioned earlier, the medic can heal over time, and the sniper, of course, is an elite enemy. I spent some time in this room due to the unfair nature of how it's set up. It didn't take too long though to figure out a good setup and bring them down. But then we needed to do it in reverse, where we now have a named enemy, Domino, and another elite sniper, the mid bosses. I am now on the floor of an assembly room, while they have the upper area. I was definitely outmatched at the moment. It didn't help that they could shoot through what I was hiding behind. Again, it didn't take long to figure this one out, and luckily, when I respawned, it put me into the crow's nest from where the previous sniper had been hiding, effectively now giving me the upper hand. And then we move on to the finale of the mission and the game, a helicopter. So we are now tasked with taking down Pequod with a pistol, and it took about 10 minutes to finish it off and to end the game. This mission added 3 deaths to our counter, and at this point, who gives a fuck about what item it gives me? So here we are, the end of the division. I'm beating it, only using a pistol, and doing it solo. This challenge took around 24 hours total time to complete, with a total death count of 53. We completed all 16 main missions of the base game and achieved 300% at the base of operations. Honestly, this was a super fun thing to stream and play through, and I had a whole lot of fun doing so. Doing some research online, it looks like this may be the first recorded pistol-only run through the game. I've seen some talk about it on places like Reddit, but nothing to show that it has been done before. I don't doubt that it has though, This game has many talented players, and this challenge would be a breeze to most of them. I'm just saying this may be the first one recorded all the way through. If you've made it to the end here, I do hope you enjoyed it. As a normal for a YouTube video, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.